Sonia is the first thing. BJ! Exactly. It's so funny what's going on in the world and how some people have just lost their minds, but that, not you, Sonia, the people you're referencing. You're awesome. And good morning to all of you. And well, not good morning. It's morning for me because I got in at 4 in the morning again and went to sleep at 5. But for everybody else, it's now 2 o'clock, so you have to apologize. I have to apologize. I'm a few hours behind. If I seem a little bit low on energy, I'm still quite sick and haven't slept very much. We'll talk about that in a couple of seconds. But that doesn't mean we can't come together this afternoon and have the greatest, most positive Saturday afternoon of your life. And I'm going to do my best to see if we can make that happen. I'm not entirely sure, but I've been getting lots of love from many of you who are on the Discord. I really appreciate it. And little things like that, especially when some of the back and forth goes on and I see some of your private messages and DMs or posts in Discord or whatever, really appreciate it. Like it's nice to know that there are other people out there who you can spot deception when it's clear and right in front of their faces. Anyways, Beth on Locals says, you didn't answer my question. Did you hear your funny bone? Yes, I did. I've heard a lot of bones lately for whatever reason. Iron out the kinks, not a problem. Yeah, there's a bunch of little issues, but I do hope, even though it's not the morning, you have your cup of freedom and that you will join me together. We're doing like a toast to freedom with coffee. We'll do it at night when we do a live stream, and I'll have a couple of glasses of wine, which may or may not be this weekend, but I'll let you know soon. And grab your cup and let's cheers to freedom and to everything that we've accomplished. And despite all the mouthy people who try to throw other people under the bus, we're all sticking together and focusing just on the truth and just on the facts. And I'll bring up Luke's quote about that, which I thought is, I don't know, it resonates with me. But cheers to all of you. And for fighting for truth and believing in truth, it's a rare quality nowadays for whatever reason. Ryan C7 says, getting drunk and doing yard work on this gorgeous day. Isn't it awesome? When I was down in Boston, it was 29 degrees. It was absolutely beautiful. Tao, what's up, brother? We got to get on the Discord. I need you to walk me through some stuff. I just got to find a spare 30 seconds to do that, and this week was particularly rough. Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm not going to complain, but I'm going to complain a little bit about my week. Now, just to give you a sense, because I know a lot of people are like, well, why aren't you streaming every day? And let me just start this other one. I got another stream I got to start. I almost forgot the audio recording. That's how half asleep I am right now at this moment. So people have been asking me, how come you're not streaming every day, recording your podcast every day, or all that sort of stuff? It's difficult, especially now, just in general, it can be quite difficult, but, given how the schedule of trucking, and especially when you run multiple projects. But this week serves as a pretty good example to explain why. But because I had a bunch of people ask me Thursday, you coming in, whatever, are you going to stream? So Wednesday I left and I went to Boston, and some great people down there. Really, really good, solid people. I shouldn't say. I went to Marlborough first the night before to unload in Marlborough, and I stayed overnight in Marlborough. So I was up early on Thursday morning. And Thursday morning, I managed to finish my reset. You can do all your safety checks or whatever. Go to my back haul, pick up the back haul, and I got through super early at what's called a good back haul. Something normally could get back home quite quick, quite early. And I was done by, 12 o'clock, I think, something like that. And I took my time with this. And then I drove to the venue where Mass Adoption was hosting Luke Broyles, which I'll talk about in a second. So I got up early in the morning, drove the truck, went to the back hall, grabbed the truck, went to the event, found some parking lot adjacent to the industrial. It was an industrial complex. It was office buildings where they had the event. Really nice place. I wish I remember what it was. I could plug it. I'll do that next time. And grabbed my laptop and started working on trying to finish off some Substack articles that need to be released. And so I sat there, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours working in the place and just getting through a bunch of stuff. And then the event started, which was Luke's event, which I'll discuss in a second. And so we finished everything on Thursday night. Remember, I've been up since, I don't know, what time did I wake up? 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as the event was done, did my goodbyes and everybody trade information and all that sort of, spoke to a bunch of people there. And by the way, Freedom Convoy, we're all heroes in the United States, especially in the great state of Massachusetts. Some really great people who really understand the importance of freedom, far more than a lot of Canadians do, to be entirely honest. But it was great. And then by 10 o'clock, I had already submitted my paperwork for customs, walked over to the truck and started driving back to Toronto. And I finally got back into Toronto at 9:27. I arrived in my place. How do I know that? Because I had a meeting with some lawyers that started at 9:30 that I was scrambling to try to get here. Oh, and by the way, the entire time, I still have this stomach flu or whatever it was, and it was not, it wasn't great coming back. I had to stop a number of times. So, our meeting finished, I think, at 10:30 in the morning, and after being up for 20 some odd, I think it was almost 28 hours, but yeah, I think it was, because I actually woke up earlier than 7. But anyways, I finally managed to get myself to sleep at around 11 o'clock, 11, 12 o'clock. Yeah, it was around then, and then slept for 4 hours and woke up and had to get in my car and then drive 4 hours away to meet with somebody to have what was a pretty long meeting in another city. I don't want to say where right now. It's not important, but you'll know at a later date. And spent 4 or 5 hours together, eating, drinking, talking, all that sort of stuff, catching up on a whole bunch of things, and then had to drive back after that for 4 hours back to Toronto. So I got back again, this time at 4 o'clock in the morning, and managed to get up a couple of hours ago, and here we are. So that's why I wasn't streaming the past couple of days. That's why I wasn't here. And just it was a little bit of a sustained stretch to Massachusetts. I thought it would actually be longer, but it wasn't. And then other stuff, it gets ahead of you. Like word gets, life is really, really busy right now. But I want to thank all of you for being very, very sweet and communicating and reaching out and sending me DMs. And I'm doing my best to respond to everybody. And something that just touched on, it occurred to me just before I started the stream. Thank you for all the love and the support. And there's one little asterisk I just want to suggest. And I know, spoken to some other people who've been in the public space, and this seems to be an ongoing trend. And none of you here have done any of this, so this is not you. But I just want you to be aware of one of the things that goes on. So, it comes a point where you start to get so many different messages and DMs and requests through email, through Twitter, through other social media. Like it's just, there's always something coming on, and sometimes it takes a day or 2 days to get back to people, just because I actually have a whole list of Twitter DMs I started 20 minutes before this that I told people, okay, I'll get to it, sort of thing. And there are people who become supportive and reach out. And, when you are accessible, then as I try to be as accessible as possible to everybody. And when you're accessible, sometimes, once in a while, I've spoken to other people who've gone through this too. There are people who, they reach out and they want to, be supportive, help, whatever it is, or just that you resonate with them, and they want to communicate and talk to you and whatever. Cool, awesome. always appreciate that sort of positive vibe. But there's something weird that switches in some people, and I've noticed it's more towards when it's tainted with politics, that people reach out to you and they want to help you out and supportive and back and vice versa. Like, I think it's a two-way street, and I'm a firm believer in reciprocity. But then something weird changes. Something happens where all of a sudden they start making demands. And where you've been really open and yeah, okay, great, thanks and talk, and then all of a sudden they start dictating things to you and making demands like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who do you think you are? Like, what are you doing? That apparently happens quite a lot. It's really weird. And none of you who are watching right now are in the chat, because I can see most of you who are in the list of the chat who are like that. But just be aware of that. Be aware that that happens to people that are in this, who have somewhat of a public profile. And I think, I'm learning why so many people are somewhat apprehensive about engaging with people that they don't know, because it's weird how this happens. People just jump on, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, well, okay, I'm on your team, want to support, whatever. And then all of a sudden they start making demands. And then when you don't succumb to demands and say, sorry, that's not how this works, what do? Then they turn on you. It's the weirdest thing ever. Like, it's so weird. Human behavior is just a fascinating science. But just don't be susceptible to that. And just always remember that we all of you have lots of demands in your lives. And, oh, yeah, Ryan. So good. I demand you stream daily, BJ. Man, I wish I could. But right now I can't, brother. And I wish I could be here and talking to you every day, man, because you've always been super. I mean, you were one of the first people that sent me one of those really solid, positive, emotional messages, and I really, I will remember that forever. I really do appreciate it, and thank you. Okay, so why the hell was I in Massachusetts, right? Well, firstly, there was a load to deliver and pick up, obviously, and I asked my dispatch to send me there. But there was another mass adoption event. So there's little Bitcoin, but Bitcoin groups and communities kind of all over the United States and Canada. I try to go to different ones whenever I can. You guys, those of you who aren't into Bitcoin, even I'm a Bitcoiner and I'm a techie guy and I'm just interested in that sort of stuff. And I like reaching out and meeting some of these people. Really great experience. I've met some people for one of the podcasters I was on with recently, so I don't want to say who yet because he hasn't released the episode, was there as well. Super good guy. Finally got to sit with him face to face and talk about, some of the follow-up from our interview and that sort of stuff. You really only get that when you go to these events. You can talk to people face to face. So I try to do as many of them as possible. They seem to be more popular in the United States. Canadians just like to stay at home for some reason. It's really weird. I shouldn't say that because they have the big event in Shelburne every week. But yeah, for whatever, these get-togethers in restaurants or clubs or bars or whatever, they're far more common in the U.S. So I've been going to a lot of them. And so I do go to Massachusetts periodically as well to meet with this group. Mass Adoption, they're on Twitter. They're awesome people, and they are the ones hosting the Bitcoin Freedom Festival that's going to be honoring the Canadian truckers in the summer. And that's part of what my meeting was about last night. And I encourage all of you, if you haven't gotten a ticket, if you want to come out to Massachusetts in the heat in the summer and go see Boston and go on. It's not far. I know in the truck it's 9 hours away, in the car it's 8 hours away. We're not talking about crossing the continent, but at least for where I am. But if you're around in June, you should come out. I'm going to talk more about that as we get closer to the date. It's really awesome. So at this event, there was a very fine, very intelligent young gentleman by the name of Luke Broyles, who was giving a talk. And Luke, as he was explaining, had a number of threads around he's not just Bitcoin. Obviously it's Bitcoin focused, But Bitcoin, the economy, and then how it parallels, what I liked about it is he incorporates one of my interests, which is ancient history and history overall, and history of economics, and how it kind of overlays with what's going on in the world right now, and why, this new asset, Bitcoin, that nobody understands, or very few people understand what it is, why it's important. And so he gave an excellent talk. I don't want to spoil it by telling you what he said. We'll talk more about it in the near future, but it was a really, really good presentation. And what was also really nice about it is, I have a lot of time for people of faith, and I have time for people who are not of people of faith. But it was really interesting to see somebody who is young, somebody who is, he's not in your face about it, but he's a person of faith, where faith is important to him. But he presents an academic and strategic argument around the principles of freedom, and freedom around money and sovereignty and all that sort of stuff. And I think he's going to have a bright future in the space, and I think he would resonate with a lot of you. I really do. So Luke Broyles is his name. I've reposted one of his very well articulated threads in my Twitter profile. Check it out. I think you'll get a lot from him. Sonia says, can unjabbed cross the border now? Don't know. In a truck, for sure you can. In a truck, you've been able to for the entire COVID stuff. Despite what the fake Canadian news wants to tell you, I have never once, going into the United States, ever been asked for my vaccine, my cerveza sickness medicine status. Not once. The only exception was when I traveled to Bitcoin Miami, but that was not going into the United States. That was going into Colombia. I was asked for my status, but in the U.S., never. So I think there's a lot of this is narrative driven. I don't really know, but that's what I can tell you. I can tell you, I'm pretty certain. I know they just extended something in the U.S., but then they also ended the emergency status I discussed in the last stream. The U.S. ended its emergency state around COVID policy, whatever it is. And so they've just dropped it. So I think I've had other people tell me who are not vaccinated that they've gone across into the United States. So it shouldn't be all that hard to find, but I don't personally know myself. I refuse a passport. I can't leave anyhow with the birds. Listen, you know what, Jesse? You know what I do love? You would love about Florida. I remember used to walk home, and you would see these flocks of parrots flying around because in front of where I used to live, there were mango trees and stuff, and it was just amazing. If you're into birds and tropical life, you would love Florida. But anyways, it's awesome. I'm still atheist, but only in the last few years did I realize how much faith is important. Now people are worshiping government and gender ideology. The church has always been the counter to the state. Ryan, I agree with almost everything there. The only difference is, it depends where you are in culture, but the Western Roman Empire, after it collapsed, we refer to that period often as the Dark Ages, as a very European-centric worldview. In that scenario, the church was the state, right? You had all these kind of nation cities, if you will, but the one, what do you call them? International multi-conglomerate, if you will, was the church, and that's really what kind of held Western Europe together throughout medieval times. Did it do a good job? It depends on your perspective and which times. It's yes and no, right? That's a whole long philosophical debate. But yeah, otherwise I'm with you, man. And you can totally see the importance and the utility of religion in full force for people. Like for me, it's not. I don't need that to have. That's just not who I am. I'm not a terribly spiritual person, but I have a lot of friends who very much are. And one of my closest friends, I've mentioned many times, I have 3 of my best friends. One of them is extremely religious, and I've known him since grade 3, something like that, very young. And he's very, very religious because religion for him gives him structure. He's one of those people that needs structure in his life, and and he'll admit that. And so the utility of religion for him gives him that necessary structure. So that's why I never criticize people who are people of faith or people who aren't. Like, you do you, I do me, and let's support each other, and let's focus on our commonalities, right? Speaking of currency, Ken says, good to see you, Ken. The government is planning to release a new $3 coin called the Troonie in support. Oh my God. You got me, Ken. You got me. That's pretty awesome. That's quite awesome. Yeah. Anyways, so check out Luke Broyles. If I really strongly suggest, I'll post his talk from the weekend. It was quite valuable, and I think it's valuable to new, maybe people are new to Bitcoin but understand basic economics, and those who don't understand. I think he gives a very good outline of the synopsis of the space and why it's important and where we're going in terms of how our economies, whether it be global or regional, are going to evolve over time, right? So, Ken, that was quite awesome. All right, Carol, you're in Florida. You're on the West Coast, aren't you? If I remember correctly, didn't you say you're around the Tampa area? And that's where my friend Mark is, Mark Petroni. He's also in the Tampa area. Christina, good morning to you as well. And is that a beer or a coffee? I guess because it's warm, it's probably beer. And I hope you're enjoying your day. Okay, so something else that happened while I was in Boston and I was working away on the computer a couple of hours before the event started was there are new charges laid in the around the Freedom Convoy. So more, smearing and utilizing the fake news media to paint everybody involved in the Freedom Convoy in a negative light. This time it was Chris Barber got another account of, I don't know, this mischief bullshit, whatever it is. I don't know how that's going to actually. I don't understand how that has any legs in the legal system. And I've spoken to many police officers who laugh when they hear this whole mischief nonsense. So our political class is turning our legal system into a joke. We are just, the butt joke of the world. We have a blackface prime minister, and we have a judicial system that sends you to Shawshank for mischief. But, if you, carjack somebody or steal stuff or whatever, that's okay. That's all right. That doesn't matter. I mean, so Leninist and Maoist. Like, it's so obvious right in front of our faces, right? Yeah, Christina, it is. Christina, the NCI in Winnipeg now for third aid. Yeah, whatever. Listen. That's just the political class trying to capture people into a voting bloc around the anti-mandates. That's more. I'm just not a supporter of what they're doing. There are ways to do it, and there are ways to not do it. But this is just. It's just a hustle, in my opinion, and I don't think it has any credibility whatsoever. But that's just my personal. And that's maybe because I know the people who are involved are the same people. If I can swear. Can I swear for a second? They're the same people who fucked us in Ottawa. So, sorry. And thrown bribes around all over the place and stuff. Like, it's really frustrating. But anyways, it is what it is. The truth will always come out, right? It's going to take time, but the truth will come out. You know that. So anyways, these new charges have been levied against Chris Barber. And, the thing is, it's always framed in a way that Justin Trudeau is authoritarianism, Justin Trudeau, whatever. Listen, I don't like Trudeau either. We all know he's garbage, okay? All of us. But those charges are in Ontario. That's Doug Ford. That's Doug Ford's government levying charges against Chris Barber. Why? Well, none of them ever talk about it. Why am I always the singular person talking about the provincial Conservatives, Doug Ford, UCP, all these other hacks that they're doing exactly what Justin Trudeau does, but they're doing it behind the blue banner? I'm sorry. I'm not going to excuse that, right? It's so frustrating. It really is. And that is not to take away from the fact that Trudeau is a disaster. Yes, he is. He's a nightmare. But, right? It's ignoring the culpability of provincial leaders. It's really deceptive, and I don't like it. It's it's just so frustrating. Wonder what happened to Tam. Yeah, I have no idea. She's gone back to work for the CCP in China. Is that what happened? I don't know. She's such a plant. Like, everybody knows. You know somebody's a plant when they respond so aggressively. And but anyways, it is what it is, right? But anyways, so this singular focused narrative around Trudeau and obfuscates of the responsibility from the provincial Conservatives in various provinces. Like, remember, Tim Houston, a Conservative, who made it illegal to participate in a convoy during the Freedom Convoy. Like, they were all screwing us, all of them, but they say nothing. It's just so frustrating, right? We can't fix this if we're not honest. I guess that's my big bend, right? Oh my God, I hope Ben fixes Rumble. I'm going to do that after this, Jesse. I don't know why it doesn't work with this encoder. It was working, and then there's a software update, and it's like, I'm going to deal with that today. I promise. I will get back on Rumble. I promise. So anyways, I had, I'm going to try something right now. I want to, I'm going to put it on, should I do this now or no? No, you know what? I'm going to save this for another episode. This is pretty, it's pretty good. But anyways, that's the deal. New charges have been levied against Barber. Is it going to go anywhere? I don't know. They're going to try to make him the next, since we've gotten rid of Wilson and Marazzo, that they got nuked for my testimony, and now they tried to bring in that, that Beth Ann grifter who took credit for all of Chris Guerra's work, and that blew up in their face. So once again, they're looking for somebody else to be the face of the convoy or the convoy board or whatever, and it's maybe because the person who was the face during the convoy has some skills that they've underestimated. I don't know, whatever it is. But that is to say, despite the Chris Barber's mouthiness and arrogance and stupidity this past week of joining the smear merchants and attacking me and whatever, I don't care. I really don't care. His opinion has no bearing on me. But I don't want him to get arrested. I don't want him to go to jail. I don't want anybody to go to jail. I explained that in my talk with Jordan Peterson, where I said, we need people in government and the media to tone down their rhetoric. But once again, we're dominated by extremists who always double down on their extremism. And, this additional charges is an example of that. And I wish they had the wisdom to understand that they're not doing, the political class is not doing themselves any favor. They're not doing the country any favor. And they might want to rethink this strategy that they're utilizing right now, because it's probably going to work against them. But anyways, yeah. So despite his mouthiness, and he's been a total prick to me in every possible way. I know the reason. He's scared. He's very scared and very worried, and doesn't want all this pressure. And just like, okay, I'll just go along and say whatever. That's not what leadership is. That's what a coward does. And but that's fine. And I'm not, listen, not everybody, well, not a coward. That's what a follower does. And not everybody is a leader. He is obviously not a leader. I personally don't care. I will never, stop. I will always speak the truth no matter what. Nobody's going to tell me, I don't care about political gain or not, what I should or should not say to any of you, right? But he's got different circumstances, and he's decided to go down this path of being a parrot for a narrative and regurgitate lies. I will never forgive Chris Barber ever, ever for one thing. And remember, my focus is always messaging, right? The importance of good messaging. And we all make mistakes. I get that, but on the stand, Chris Barber used the word occupation to describe our protest or demonstration, however you want. He used Trudeau's word of occupation, Trudeau and Doug Ford's word, right? So you know where this is coming from. And you talk about a lack of spiritual leadership and spiritual strength. That is what it looks like, and which is probably why he was crying. So, anyways, but I don't wish any ill will on him or anybody else. I don't want anybody else to get arrested. I don't want people facing charges. I want cooler heads to prevail through all of this. If we had reasonable Crown attorneys, they would understand that they're not going to proceed with a political prosecution, which is what these all are. And but we'll see. Let's see what happens over time. Angel Fire says Doug Ford is a sellout to all of us. Yes, he is. I mean, most of them are. I'd like to know more about his party's involvement with the CCP. Well, the only thing I can tell you is when that minister was removed for alleged ties to the CCP, those alleged ties were there, and everybody apparently knew about them prior to him being elected. So it's nothing new, right? What are you going to do? Anyway, so that's my comment on that, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail, and we won't our political class and our fake news media won't keep doubling down on the stupidity and the extremism, right? Who would have thought that the crackhead was the good one? Yeah. You know, it's so funny with that episode with Doug Ford, the cognitive dissonance on the both sides. So the liberals, they suffered, and this is how you know it's all tribal, right? The liberals had cognitive dissonance because they're always virtue signaling around people in need. And some of those people in need are people who are addicts, right? So they always virtue signal around them, except for Rob Ford, right? But then on the other side, the more extreme side of the more, let's say the right wing, if you want to call it, they're always shut up, stop taking drugs, and you need to fix yourself. Well, they became the liberals around Rob Ford, and said, oh, poor guy, he's an addict. Well, that's been the liberal argument the entire time. So you know what the conclusion is? They're all full of shit. All of them. It's just politics as sport. Blue versus red. They will change their worldview like that if it benefits them politically. And I won't participate in that. That's why I get all the labels and the smears. That's why it's, oh, he's a Fed, or he's this, or he's that. Because I won't play this game of Team Red versus Team Blue. I don't care. I don't like groups. I'm an individualist. A radical individualist, maybe you'd say. Not joining any groups. You know, I don't like cults. I'm going to tell you. I'm not big on cults. But yeah, good point, Ryan, for sure. Christine, illegal occupation was such a brainwashing verbiage. Well, that's exactly what they were doing. It was intentional. Now their new favorite saying is special rapporteur. Yeah, what the hell does that mean? Out of nowhere, right? And it was very funny. So first, the convoy didn't meet the threshold of an occupation. You know why? There's actually a legal definition of what an occupation is. And an occupation is something where pedestrian traffic, in addition to all commercial traffic, is impeded, right? What was that thing, that blockade, Ipperwash, years ago? Remember Ipperwash? All of a sudden, all the lefties forgot about Ipperwash, where they were sitting back. Oh, the police can't intervene. No, the police have to wait, right? Because there's grievances we need to listen to. Again, Team Red versus Team Blue. It's okay for them, and both sides do it. So with Ipperwash, it was that's an occupation because all traffic was impeded. In Ottawa, I don't know if you saw, there were tens of thousands of people walking in and out of Ottawa every day, right? Plus the fact that we had all these laneways open for emergency vehicles and city traffic to drive through Ottawa. And you know how I know? Because I have a picture of me being driven into Ottawa on, what day was it? On the 3rd, 2nd? Because remember, I was in and out for a day. And I was taking pictures of the truckers shoveling snow when I got back, driving in the lane that was made for traffic to flow around Ottawa. So it's all bullshit. It's all a lie. It's a fabrication. And the worst part is they know it's a fabrication. So they're going out of their way intentionally just to brainwash Canadians. We're in a PR war with our government. And because the word occupation can be somewhat ambiguous to people who've never experienced it, or it can at least be interpreted, they have to add the modifier illegal to give it a negative taint. That's why they use the term illegal. All of it is bullshit. All of it. It's infuriating. Wasn't it police services that cordoned off streets with barricades? Yes, it was. All the trucks in Ottawa were laid out where the police said the trucks should be parked. So if they don't like where the trucks were parked, you can go complain to the city of Ottawa and the Ottawa police, because they're the ones who instructed us where to park. I've never felt safer and have seen the city so clean during the convoy. Yeah, and remember the crime statistics plummeted as well, right? So it's like we were doing the city's job for them. You didn't need a government. That's what I think we proved during the Freedom Convoy. That government is useless. That's why I like this thought experiment that I think it was Adams that brought up, and I'm trying to work with. I think he's onto something, which is government in a box. That's how he brands it, which is brilliant branding. Government in a box. That's what we need. You know, can imagine if we had our government was limited to, let's say, border security and, I don't know, emergency services. Let's say those two things is what government is limited to, right? And then you have, like, you still have the government there, but you have this government in a box. What is that? That's the team of proven thought leaders that will come in for 6 months. Let's say it's, I don't know, Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Jeff Bezos, people who are accomplished, good thought leaders who will sit down and advise the government and look at all the problems, maybe utilize AI, and say, in the example of, let's say, Ontario, we have 348,000 pieces of legislation in Ontario the last I checked. Most of it's redundant garbage, right? Most of it's just a jobs program. So have this team and AI come in and say, okay, let's strip the government of all this bloatware bullshit that we don't need anymore. These are going to be the recommendations we come up with for 6 months. And then we're going to be back in 3 years to do another revision. And the idea is, let's take this government, this government bureaucracy, and let's shrink it by 90%. Because we are in the age of digitization, of modern technology, where things are exponentially more efficient, yet we're using a government structure from the 17th century. This is why we're bankrupt. We're paying for a government structure that no longer is viable, right? So government in a box, bring them in. This is how we're going to form things. And what do? You get greater freedoms as a result of it. I remember listening this week, a podcast in the truck, and somebody asked the question, why do we have public education? And I thought to myself, interesting question. Why do we have public education? You see how homeschooling is becoming very popular. I've had some people reach out to me who are working on projects of kind of like WeWork and homeschooling together. So different areas and different communities or whatever neighborhoods, people can hire a teacher and bring the 40 students in the neighborhood. And there's the curriculum that they have to abide by. but they're paying for it. They're sending their kids there. It's costing them like a few $100 a month, and that's it. That's because they're pooling their money together to make their own little school for the neighborhood, and that's how they're educating their kids. And I thought, like, somebody's got to pair that to Uber technology, the Uber app, and then we don't need a public education system anymore. What do we need that for? And that's what's bringing all this postmodern communist crap in. Okay, so you're postmodern communist, fine. Go to your postmodern communist in your neighborhood, hire a teacher for your kids, and you can brainwash them with that bullshit, right? Why do we have public education? We don't need it. It's the second, I think it's the second largest line item in all Western governments that we spend all our money on. It's a bureaucracy that's useless. I don't know. It's just a thought experiment. That's what they were talking about on this podcast. And I thought, there might be something to that. I don't know. Because schools are just a daycare, right? At this point, just for people who need a place to put their kids. Well, there you go. What is this? The government in a box triggers memories, mental picture, of virtual private servers that use prepackaged machine images with a bunch of perfectly configured apps and can be started on demand. That's interesting. I mean, that's the subjective experience of the whole visualization triggers for each of us. We all will visualize things differently. But interesting. Ken Paisley, imagine if Uber made a profit. Yeah, well, I mean, that's another conversation a philosophical conversation we can talk about for a while. Hold on. Jesse is sending me a message on Discord and on here. I'm so confused. Ryan, high school was such a waste of time. Yeah, listen, how much more do people learn nowadays since the advent of, this amazing telecommunications tool we have, which is the internet? I mean, how much more do people learn just out of curiosity, out of utilizing YouTube and now increasingly Rumble? So you're starting to see non-political content go on to Rumble, which is very good. We need to see more EDU content like that. So in your neighborhood, you and some parents together could come up with, curriculum and videos and presentations and assignments that aligns with the curriculum, a general curriculum framework, I guess you'd call it. And you can educate your kids the way you want them to be educated, right? And then all that money that you're remitting in taxes for education, that should just be remitted back if we don't have public. Anyways, I don't know if that's the solution. It's just an interesting thought experiment, which is why I brought it up. But anyways, Beth says, as a homeschool grad, homeschool was the best years of my life. So here you go. So much wasted time in schools, and I could pursue skills that interested me in the off hours. Yeah, so I mean, it's just a daycare. There was a YouTuber who I'd met many years ago through somebody who was friends with him by the name of CGP Grey, who was a teacher prior to becoming a very, very popular, very famous YouTuber. And he had some very interesting, perspectives on his experience of being a teacher. And I grew up with a teacher in my home as well. It's just a daycare. It's just a government bloated daycare program. Why are we funding this? Why? Just get rid of it. Throw it out. And the school should never have. Oh, here we go. Christina, good point. I can argue this and I can argue against it. You know what? I can argue against it, but I also agree with you. And the school should never start teaching sex ed, in my opinion, not their place. Okay. Yes, with an asterisk. Okay. And I'm just going to propose this as a thought example. Cheryl, 2 + 2 = 5. I was actually listening to that just before I started. Christina, I agree. So Christina's point is that schools should never have taught sex ed, and I supported some of our sex ed stuff in our curriculum, and I'll tell you why. This is the other side of the coin. I'll give you an example that I know of. Somebody who I know, they were in school at the age of 12 years old. I think they were doing it was the Harper government was doing this. 12 years old? I don't remember. The Harper government was doing this program for the HPV vaccine. Okay. HPV is the number one cause of cervical cancer, which is why governments all over, including Harper's government, was trying to get as many kids as possible inoculated to HPV. Okay, this is not our mRNA, none of that sort of nonsense. Whatever. Okay, fine. So her mom, they're new to the country. They weren't from Canada, and very nice people. The mother found out and said, "No, you're not getting this vaccine." And the daughter said, "Mom, I should." The schools said, "No, you're not getting it under any circumstances." Okay, so you're a kid. Your mom says no, you don't know, so you don't get the vaccination. Fast forward several years, and people grow up. They go to school. They have relationships in university and stuff like that. And this person ended up getting HPV and cervical cancer as a result of it. All that could have been avoided, but her mother was, new to Canada, didn't trust the government because of where they're from. They grew up not trusting government. Government's bad, which is increasingly becoming, the opinion. Anytime a government becomes authoritarian, it's never good, right? And her mother had no educational background in this area, didn't understand it, so just reacted. And the school was trying to explain it and teach it, and this particular person was trying to explain to her mother that they're teaching this in school, they're explaining why I need to have this and blah blah blah. And she said, no, the mother's not in the class getting the education around it. So sometimes sex education is not always about sex. That's the problem. Now, this creep, Benjamin Levitz, who I think should be in front of a firing squad, the pedo, who drafted all the sex ed curriculum, and the Liberal Party and Kathleen Wynne propped this guy up and then tried to ignore it when it was exposed that he was a pedo. That's when all of us were like, what the fuck? What is going on? This doesn't make sense, right? So I understand the grievances against it and the criticism or whatever. But I looked at it not as the sex ed part, but this particular example of somebody who should have been received something that prevented STDs, but was because her mother was not aware of the facts around it. She discouraged her daughter from getting it, and then she ended up getting the very illness, cancer, that the government was trying to prevent. So is that the right position? I don't know. But there are two positions. There's always more than one position. And I think the reason I'm arguing the other side, I'm trying to give you the best argument on the other side. I'm not saying I agree with that, because both sides have practical perspectives. So anyways, did I at least make the case? You may not agree, but do you at least understand my perspective and the other side? I don't know. Let me know. 2 + 2 = 5. Actually, in Canada, 2 + 2 = purple, right? Tao says, socialized education is a good thing. I don't know. I don't think so. But parents don't inherently have a full knowledge to pass on, or the time to pass on knowledge. The professional teachers are demanded. Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at a free market alternative to public education, that you get people, they're already doing it. They're already doing it with homeschooling. And it's becoming exponentially more popular because people are losing faith in the public education system. So why wouldn't we just allow them to say, okay, you want to have you want to hire an accredited teacher with people in your neighborhood, and you want to fund that teacher? Great, then you can do that. And then the government can get out of the business. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying that it's, that I'm not saying that I'm correct. I'm just saying as a potential alternative, right? However, a potential teacher can be expensive. Yeah, but that's why you as a community, you negotiate with the teacher. Like anytime you hire a subcontractor, an employer, you just figure out, you find the right teacher for the right fit, and everybody's happy. But anyways, welcome to the only future yeah, exactly. All right, we'll talk more about that. I think we here we says who's this? Angel Fires says, we did it as a community. Nobody paid anybody. We all just had different strengths and would share with each other. And the only cost I had was for the curriculum. Okay, so there you go. All right. Well, I clearly have started some sort of back and forth conversation on this stuff. So the last thing that I found interesting was, you've seen over the past week, the smears and attacks have escalated for some reason, and it was very interesting. Around the same time that the smears and attacks, because they just bring out the same. It's the same pile of crap they try to throw at me. They throw it at other people too. They're just recycling the same garbage that didn't work the last time, and they're trying it again, right? But it's very interesting that right around the time that the smear and attacks came from Big Con Canada Inc., all of the nemesis to all freedom fighters. Around the same time, once again, Punchy McGregor from CTV starts stalking me on TikTok again. It's like, dude, what's the matter? Like, what? Firstly, if you want to talk to me and ask me a question, go to Twitter. My DMs are open. Send me a question, and I'll ignore it. But why are you stalking me on TikTok? Like, I'm not, And what's really interesting, so the smear attacks start, then Punchy McGregor follows me. This is the pattern. And then something gets released relevant to the Freedom Convoy or charges or whatever in legacy media. And in this case, it was Chris Barber. It happens every time. Every time. They start to ramp up the attacking BJ machine, the same recycled bullshit. Punchy McGregor follows me on or checks out my profile on TikTok, I guess, to see if I'm responding to anything. And then some sort of changes to the charges or stuff around the Freedom Convoy invoked. You think maybe they're all working together? You think maybe? Like, it's so obvious. So frustrating. Anyways. But for me, I have a secret. And my secret, exactly, gross. My secret power is simple. What people think about me is none of my business. And I strongly recommend to all of you to adopt that frame and figure out a way to get into that psychological frame. Because if you don't care about what the people who are when you understand they're being paid, not always with money, to smear you, like they're actively part of a group of people trying to do it as a branding exercise. If it doesn't bother you, then they have no power. That's it, right? And eventually they're going to run out of steam. They always are, right? All of this stuff this is why I try to focus on, positivity and love and peace and freedom, because look at the evolution of, I call the two convoys of what's happened, right? Somebody sent me a message recently saying, I didn't realize it before, but you were the spiritual voice of the convoy. And I said, not that I disagree, but what makes you think that? And this person said, because you've kept focusing the entire time, you focused on peace and love and reaching out and freedom and supporting one another and all that sort of stuff. And since the convoy, you've continued to do the same thing. Obviously we're all talking about negative things. This is my inserting. We're all talking about negative issues, but I'm always trying to maintain that positive frame to show you things are going to get better. There's going to be rough waters and some bumps on the road, but eventually things are going to work out. And she said to me, I can see that you're still maintaining that positive frame, but all these other people, the what I call Big Con Canada Inc., it's all just cynicism and attacks and smearing people. And I said, yes. So now you're seeing the difference between political operatives who get desperate and have overlords who tell them what to say. It's time to smear BJ. Everything is BJ's fault. Just nail him into the ground, whatever. And myself and all of us together that, no, we're going to get out of it. Things are going to work out. Let's just remain and be positive. And we'll talk about a couple of things that are negative here and there, like we just talked about what happened to Barber this week. But things are going to work out, right? That's oh, I should press this thing. Oh, I don't like that thing in the background. That's kind of the spiritual frame that it's important to me. It was important to me during the convoy, and it's still important to me. It's still important that we maintain this positive space as much as possible, even when we disagree on issues. So like when Christina explained sex ed and I tried to give the best argument in the opposite position, it's not with malice, it's not with attacks, it's not with any cruelty. I appreciate that she comes here and contributes. And are we going to agree or disagree, or maybe it's somewhere in the middle? I don't know. Whatever. But this space is all positive. And I'm not going to change myself for their misery and their negativity and their cynicism, which is what dominates politics, if you've noticed, right? It's all cynical messaging and attacking and this. Like, okay, whatever, go ahead. You do your, like, they don't realize, I just want to be in my truck and work on my podcast and do my stuff and go to Bitcoin Miami and just hang out and be with the people who I care about, who are close to me. And some of you are becoming increasingly close to me as well. That's what's important to me. They have grievances around who's in charge of which political party. I'm like, all right, whatever. You have fun. They're all garbage, right? Everybody's gonna have to vote for somebody or do what I do in the next election and don't vote. Maybe focus on the changes that are coming in provincial politics, which we're going to talk about over time, but not get dragged into it. And I think people are starting to see that, at least this is what I'm being indicated, like, oh, wait, yeah, all these Freedom Corp people who kept saying, oh, yeah, peaceful, whatever, like, yeah, it came from me. And I don't know. You're seeing the Freedom Corp people, the political ops, the Big Con Canada Inc., and all these other groups who you're going to know more about as we go through and lay them out for all of you over time. And then there's just kind of the rest of us that we were just there to kind of love each other and have this amazing moment in Canadian history. And we're still doing that. That's why I keep going to mass adoption. Like the guys at mass adoption in Boston, they embody the spirit of what the Freedom Convoy was: positivity, love. They do it around Bitcoin because that is the apparatus that they use to achieve freedom. Bitcoiners understand that. Non-Bitcoiners don't understand that yet. And I'm not trying to push Bitcoin on you. But they embody the same spirit of what we were doing in Ottawa, as many other groups that I've met, the groups I've met in Miami as well. It's the political ops that are all the negative and cynical ones. And you know what? You don't need those people in your life. You really don't. All it's going to do is drag you down, right? Pam says, I give no fucks about what people think of me. I was lucky to be born that way. I love you, Pam. You're awesome. It's so true. It's so true. For a lot of people, that's very difficult. And that's not about security or insecurity. People are just brought up different ways. And I can understand why it's difficult. That's why, Chris Barber is doing what he's doing, and he's just a parrot for Big Con Canada Inc. and these politicians who screwed us in Ottawa. Because firstly, he's scared. He doesn't understand what he's involved in legally. He's scared of what's going to happen to him. And he cares what people think of him, right? Like, what perfect example of that than when we were on stage together and I said to Chris, okay, after Tamara, you speak, and then I'll just close it off and thank everybody. And said, oh, I don't like talking in front of big groups of people. Who cares? Just talk, man. Like, they're here for you. Like, yeah, they're here for us, all of us. But I don't know, whatever. What about the PPC? Yeah, that's where I'm getting. There's people in the PPC that are part of Big Con Canada Inc., and there are people who are not part of Big Con Canada Inc. who are in PPC, and the same for the Conservative Party as well. Like, everybody's got a little bit of fracturing all over. I was thinking about this. Tell me what you think. What I wanted to do is go through before the election is called, so we can start talking about it now. Go through the Conservative Party, the PPC, maybe even the Liberal Party or the NDP, okay? Hear me out. I'm not a supporter of those parties. But the worst and best arguments for each party. I think that might be interesting. So I'm not going to, give my opinion on the pros and cons of each, and we can all discuss it. And then you can decide who you're going to vote for. I'm never going to tell anybody who to vote for. I'm not voting in the next federal election, but it might be a good, just because I know a lot about kind of what goes behind the scenes in these political parties and how they all operate and all that sort of stuff, which is part of the reason they feel they need to smear me, because I'm going to explain their strategies, which I will. So they're right. They're right about that. But I think it'd be really interesting to say, okay, today we're going to explain why you should vote for the PPC. Today we're going to explain why you should vote for the Conservatives. Today we're going to explain why you should vote for the Liberals, even though that's a stretch, right? But I could figure out a way. I can figure out an argument. And then, okay, today we're going to say why you shouldn't vote for the PPC, and then why you shouldn't vote for the Conservative Party, whatever, right? I think that would be interesting, just to get everybody aware of the best arguments. That might help you and all of us communicating to friends and family, because inevitably politics is going to come up in your personal lives. And to be able to communicate the best arguments on both sides, I think is a very powerful skill, right? Jesse says, I have voted for every party in my life. I'm not married to any, but very disappointed in all. Yeah, it's Big Con Canada Inc. It's the Uniparty right now. And there are people in these parties that don't want it to be the Uniparty and are trying to separate it. And that's kind of the friction that's going on politically in Canada right now. Pam says, Max went MIA after he lost his seat for almost a year. I pounded the pavement with my candidate. He quit afterwards because he felt bamboozled. So did I. Oh, that's interesting. So you were supportive of PPC. Yeah, so like these are the types of arguments that I think we should kind of put out publicly so everybody can look. The people who are the diehards, they're part of the cult, they're just going to excuse away their party no matter what. Okay, fine. I'm not going to do that, right? I think this is the best way forward, is to go with the best and worst arguments for each. Yes, please, BJ, please do this, BJ. It will be great to hear. I'm still learning. Okay, done. Cheryl, I love you. Thank you for, oh, and Cheryl, by the way, I'm going to be in Florida in May. Are you going to be there? Let me know. I'm going to see if I can actually drive across to the other side, because I have to see somebody in the Tampa area. So let me know if you'll still be there. Pam says, Jesse, who could lead the did not vote party. He'd have a majority. Is that what we should be? The do not vote party? That'd be awesome. All right, I'm going to shut down in a minute. And then the last thing is, if you're in a Liberal riding, vote PPC. But if you're in a contested riding, vote CPC. That way they get rid of Trudeau, and the masses of the PPC votes will signal to the CPC to adopt more libertarian policies. Yes and no, kind of. I mean, it boils down to their strategy is to get the swing voters in each riding, each swing riding, by the way. Like, the parties do negotiate, and this is how cynical it is. They negotiate and trade ridings. So the Conservatives will say to the NDP, okay, that riding's your riding. We won't encroach on there, which is what I did. And that's why they were also angry at me. I said, I'm not going to run as a candidate if I don't have a campaign office and do a real campaign. Wow, the pushback I got, it was unbelievable. But it's because they negotiated the riding away to another party. So that's kind of how I'll lay all this out and explain it all to you, so you understand how it all operates, right? Anyways, okay, I think that's it for today. By the way, I think it's working. www.benjaminjdictor.com. I never thought there'd be a time in my life where I have a domain with my name. It's so embarrassing. But I basically pointed it to my link tree. So if you have anybody who wants to either buy the book, join the stream, listen to the podcast, all that sort of stuff, they can just go to benjaminjdictor.com. And it has the book, it has live streams and social medias to contact me, just to make it easier for everybody. And I think it's working, right? So check it out, and I put that in the show notes as well. And I will be here for a stream tomorrow. I'm actually not going to be back in the truck until Tuesday, and so I'll probably be doing streams for the next few days consecutively, and I might try to sneak something in at night. But I'll let you know. Beth says on locals, using your logic, she still should have been protected if the boys got the HPV shot. Beth says that. Yeah, good point. Good point. And so I'm sure she wasn't the only person who didn't get the shot. But that's why, I think it's maybe the term that people get put off by is the term sex ed, that the liberals intentionally put the term sex ed to just dissuade people of faith, people who have more traditional values. And if they sold it and explained it as health education, which is a little bit less divisive, then I think a lot more people would have been accepting of it. But they always have to divide us, right? They have to make sure that that one segment of us is always angry at the other. And that's why they use the branding of sex ed versus human health and science, right? Anyways, daily streams for a few days. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. The HPV shot is not being given to 3 months old. The only 3-month-old that get a contract HPV are sexually transmitted diseases. Yeah, no, agreed. I agree with you 100%. And I think you also notice, like on a lot of these things, like I always try to, and this is important for messaging and communication, and this was evident during the convoy, it's always important to understand the other side's argument, whether you agree with it or not. And I was utilizing that in my messaging strategy. That's why the messaging strategy was the way it was. And it was so infuriating. There's some people that were just so adamant it has to be, they want messaging their way, which was really divisive. And it would have turned away anybody. And I remember saying to somebody, that's going to turn away anybody who's a liberal. And it was, well, yeah, because the liberals are. I'm like, you're not understanding here. We need to get as many people supporting us as possible. Doesn't matter their political view. And we do that around freedom. But some people, it's like that Mark Twain quote. It's not what you know that gets you. It's what you know that just ain't so. And some people don't understand that. Okay. I love you all. You're amazing. And Ryan, thanks again for all the kind words, and Jesse and everybody else. And I will see some of you on Discord in a bit. And we'll talk to you all soon. I love you all. Have a good day.